Week 13 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I would look to hit on the waiver wire this week. The first guy is Miles Straw of the Houston Astros. For Straw here, it's been a good season for him, and he qualifies at shortstop and outfield for fantasy baseball. So on the season, 2 home runs, 25 RBIs, 11 stolen bases, a .266 batting average, and a .338 on base percentage with 33 runs scored. But the last couple weeks here, for sure, he's been on a tear. 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, 10 runs scored, a .354 batting average, and a .429 on base. So right here, he's been a big pickup over the last few days. Added in 21% of fantasy leagues, but sure, he's still out there in still 63% of fantasy leagues. But right now, he's been a hit machine for this Houston Astro team. And this Astro team, they've been on fire. They've been hitting the ball well here. And Straw has definitely been a big part of that, batting leadoff and either eighth for this team. So the last few games for Straw, June 21st at Baltimore, 1 for 5 with a run. June 22nd at Baltimore, 2 for 4 with a homer and 2 RBIs. June 23rd at Baltimore, 1 for 4 with a run. June 24th at Detroit, 4 for 6, 3 runs scored and a stolen base. June 26th at Detroit, 1 for 2. And June 27th yesterday, 2 for 4 with a stolen base. So right now, if you need some stolen bases, you need some good batting average and runs scored, I think Straw is definitely worth a good pickup this week here for fantasy owners. The second hit is Jonathan India of the Cincinnati Reds. So I spoke about India last week as a waiver wire ad, and he's back on the list once again here this week. On the season for him, 6 home runs, 29 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, 33 runs scored, a .270 batting average, and a .379 on base percentage. So right here, that's a very good on base, 110 points higher to his batting average on the season. And the last couple weeks here for India, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 11 runs scored, a .315 batting average, and a .422 on base percentage. So right now, he's going out there, and he's playing every day and batting leadoff here for this Cincinnati Red team. And I know this Red team isn't that good of a team, but obviously this qualifies as a good thing here for India, who's going to get an opportunity as a young player here and play every day for the Red team. So the last few games for him, June 21st at Minnesota, 3 for 5 with a stolen base. June 22nd at Minnesota, 0 for 4 with a run. June 24th versus Atlanta, 2 for 4 with 3 runs scored. June 25th versus Atlanta, 2 for 4 with a run. June 26th versus Atlanta, 1 for 4 with a run. And June 27th, 0 for 4 versus Atlanta. So he qualifies at second and third. So if you need some infield help, he's definitely worth an ad this week, is India. And he's still available in 49% of fantasy leagues. But right now, he's hitting the ball well. He'll help you with some stolen bases as well in fantasy. And I think he's a decent ad this week. The next hitter is Steven Duggar of the San Francisco Giants. So Duggar, he was on the list last week. And once again, he's made it again here. He's been a hit machine for this Giant team and added in 14% of fantasy leagues over the last week on the season here for Duggar. 6 home runs, 23 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, 27 runs scored, a .325 batting average, and a .397 on base. But the last couple weeks here, he's been on a hot streak, and white hot, if you want to call it that as well. 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 11 runs scored, .412 batting average, and a .524 on base. So this guy, he's getting on base 50% of the time here, which is a great and a hard thing to do. But right now, he's doing it here for the surprising first place Giants in the NL West, and pretty much playing every day right now. So the last few games for him, June 20th versus Philly, 2 for 5 with an RBI. June 22nd at the Angels, he didn't play that one. June 23rd at the Angels, 3 for 6 with a run, 3 RBIs, and a stolen base. June 25th versus Oakland in a pinch hitting appearance, 0 for 1. June 26th versus Oakland, 1 for 2 with 2 runs scored, an RBI, and a stolen base. And June 27th versus Oakland, 1 for 3 with an RBI in that ball game. So Duggar right here, he's still available though, in a whopping 73% of fantasy leagues. And if you need some batting average, you need some stolen bases, and you need a guy that's going to get on base, he's a perfect ad this week. And he qualifies in outfield, obviously, and utility. So you could just never get enough hitting for for your fantasy roster, and he's a good add this week. The next hitter is Nate Lowe of the Texas Rangers. So Nate Lowe, he got off to an amazing start early in the season. Then he got into a slump, and now he's rising back up and being a hot pickup in fantasy on the season here for Nate Lowe. 10 home runs, 40 RBIs, 35 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, 257 batting average, and a 361 on base for the Rangers first baseman. And the last couple weeks for Lowe, 1 home run, 5 RBIs, 6 runs scored, a 326 batting average, and a 442 on base. So he's on one of those hot streaks once again is Lowe. And he's getting an opportunity each and every day here for this Ranger team that's really not going to go anywhere this season, in my opinion. But right now, he's batting second for this team, and he's playing pretty well. He's driving in runs, decent number with 40 RBIs in the first 3 months of the season. So the last couple games for Lowe, June 21st versus Oakland, 1 for 4 with a run and an RBI. June 23rd versus Oakland, 2 for 4 with a homer in that one and a ribby. June 24th versus Oakland, 1 for 2. June 25th versus Kansas City, 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs scored. June 26th versus the Royals, 0 for 2. And June 27th versus the Royals, 1 for 4. So right now, he's playing pretty good baseball as Lowe. He's getting hits, he's getting on base, and he's available right now, still in 49% of fantasy leagues. And he's definitely worth an add this week. The next hitter is Wilmer Flores of the San Francisco Giants. So Flores, throughout his career, we've seen him play well, and obviously he qualifies at a lot of positions, first, second, and third base here for fantasy owners, and he's been added in 14% of fantasy leagues this week, and he's still available, Flores, in a whopping 83% of leagues. So on the season for him, 7 home runs, 25 RBIs, 25 runs scored, 1 stolen base, 259 batting average, and a 328 on base percentage. So Flores, he's starting to play every day here for this Giant team, and the last couple weeks for him, he's been on a tear. 4 home runs, 8 RBIs, 9 runs scored, a 333 batting average, and a 341 on base. So that's the thing with Flores, even throughout his career. Going back to his days with the New York Mets, he was a player that really never drew walks and a lot of first pitch swinging for Flores, but we've seen him with power, we've seen him driving runs, and now he's starting to get into that right now with this Giant team, batting anywhere from second to cleanup. So the last few games for him, June 20th versus Philly, 4 for 4, 2 home runs, 2 RBIs, 3 runs scored. June 22nd at the Angels, 1 for 4 with a homer and 2 RBIs. June 23rd at the Angels, 0 for 1. June 25th versus Oakland, 1 for 4 with a run. June 26th versus Oakland, 1 for 5 with a rib. And June 27th yesterday, 0 for 4 versus the Oakland Athletics. So right here, Flores, he's a little banged up with a hamstring injury, but he's played through it over the last 3 or 4 days here. And we'll see what he does in the upcoming series at the Dodgers in Arizona. But if you need infield help and you need a guy that's got some pop and could hit and drive in runs as well, I think Wilmer Flores is a good add this week. The next, Hunter Renfroe of the Boston Red Sox. So Hunter Renfroe, obviously, we know he has 30 home run potential if he plays every day here for the Red Sox. And on the season for Renfroe, 9 home runs, 37 RBIs, 38 runs scored, a 272 batting average, and a 328 on base. So those numbers, they're not so bad for Renfroe, and we're used to him batting in the 200s to 230s, and even last season he batted 156 at a 272 this season, and 232 at-bats is pretty impressive to me. And the last couple weeks here for Renfroe, 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, 6 runs scored, a 326 batting average, and a 400 on base. So right now, he's getting an everyday opportunity here with the Red Sox, and he's batting 6th in this lineup in the last few games for him. June 20th at Kansas City, 1 for 3 with a run. June 22nd at Tampa Bay, 2 for 5 with a homer, 3 RBIs, and 2 runs scored versus former team. June 23rd at Tampa, 1 for 4. June 24th at Tampa, 1 for 4. June 25th versus the Yankees, 1 for 1 with 2 RBIs and a run scored. June 26th versus the Yankees, 3 for 4 with a rib. And yesterday, June 27th versus the Yankees, 0 for 3. So right here, he's been on a good 2-week span here of getting hits, getting on base, and driving in runs. And now he's still available as Renfroe in 76% of fantasy leagues, and he's definitely worth an add this week. The next hit is Colton Wong of the Milwaukee Brewers. So Wong, he was on the injured list for a few weeks, but he came up off recent. But right now he's banged up once again with a calf injury, and he's doubtful to play in today's ball game as well is Wong. But on the season for him, 7 home runs, 20 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, 30 runs scored, a 294 batting average, and a 350 on base. So right here, second base is a weak position, no doubt about it in fantasy baseball. And Colton Wong right now is one of the hottest hitting second basemen in the league. In the last couple weeks for him, 3 home runs, 5 RBIs, a stolen base, 6 runs scored, a 364 batting average, and a 382 on base. So right now the only thing that's not good to me is the on base to batting average ratio, only 18 points higher, so that's not good at all here. And Colton Wong, he's been a hit, and that's about it, not drawing walks or getting hit by a pitch. But right now he's been smoking hot for this Brewer team. The last few games for him, June 21st at Arizona, 1 for 4 with a run. June 22nd at Arizona, 2 for 5 with a homer and an RBI. June 23rd at Arizona, 0 for 4. June 25th versus the Rockies, 2 for 5 with a homer and an RBI. And June 26th versus the Rockies, 3 for 4 with a run and a stolen base. And yesterday he sat out, was Wong with the calf issue. So hopefully he's only out one more day here, is Wong tonight versus the Chicago Cubs. Because obviously these calves could tighten up and it could be a problem for players running, fielding left and right. But Wong right now is red hot, and he's still available as well in 66% of fantasy leagues, and he's definitely worth an add this week. The next hitter is Daz Cameron of the Detroit Tigers. So the young rookie here, he got called up a few weeks ago for this Tiger team, and he's played pretty decent so far in the early going. 10 for 39, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a 256 batting average, and a 310 on base percentage. In the last couple weeks for Cameron, since he's been up, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, 4 runs scored, a 294 batting average, and a 333 on base percentage. So right now he got called up, and he's not going to sit on the bench here, is Cameron. So the last few games for him, June 23rd versus St. Louis, 1 for 3 with a homer and RBI, a stolen base, and 2 runs scored. June 24th versus Houston, 2 for 3 with a run and an RBI. June 26th versus Houston, 0 for 3 with a run. And June 27th versus Houston, 1 for 4. So right now he's batting 6th in the lineup, is Cameron, for this Detroit Tiger team. And this Tiger team, obviously one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. And they're going to give the youngsters here a chance to play every day. And that's what Cameron's doing. So if you need some stolen bases and you need a guy that could score some runs, I think Cameron's worth an add this week. And he's available in 93% of fantasy leagues. The next hit is Tony Kemp of the Oakland Athletics. So Tony Kemp, he's come out of nowhere over the last few weeks here for this Oakland A team, and he qualifies at second base and outfield as the former Houston Astro. And on the season for Kemp, 4 home runs, 17 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 27 runs scored, a 280 batting average, and a 401 on base percentage. So that's great on base, no doubt about it. In the last couple weeks here for Kemp, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs, a stolen base, 9 runs scored, 263 batting average, and a 451 on base. So this guy's finding ways to get on base. He's a base stealer, and he's a speedster here for this team. But he's bats all over the lineup right now for this Oakland A team. We've seen him bat leadoff, we've seen him bat 8th, we've seen him bat 6th. So right now he's getting an everyday opportunity. And the last few games here for Kemp, June 21st at Texas, 2 for 4 with a run and a stolen base. June 23rd at Texas, 2 for 3. June 24th at Texas, 1 for 2. June 25th at the Giants, 0 for 2. June 26th at the Giants, 0 for 4. And June 27th yesterday, 0 for 3 with a run at the Giants. So right now, Kemp, he's been added in 13% of fantasy leagues, and he's still available right now in 83%. And the final hitter I would look to add on waivers this week, C.J. Cron of the Colorado Rockies. So Cron here, he's an up and down hitter, but he's been added in 13% of fantasy leagues in the last week. And on the season for Cron, 10 home runs, 29 RBIs, 30 runs scored, 260 batting average, and a 361 on base. So right now, Cron, he's on a home run tear over the last few weeks. 5 home runs, 11 RBIs, 7 runs scored, 279 batting average, and a 380 on base. So right here, we know Cron, he has 30 to 35 home run potential, and we've seen it happen with him throughout his career a couple times, especially his days with the Minnesota Twins and one season with the Tampa Bay Rays. So the last few games for Cron: June 20th versus Milwaukee, 3 for 4 with a homer, 2 RBIs. June 22nd at Seattle, 1 for 3 with a homer and an RBI. June 23rd at Seattle, 1 for 4. 25th versus Milwaukee, 0 for 5. June 26th at Milwaukee, 0 for 3. And June 27th at Milwaukee, 0 for 3. So the last couple games here, he's been hitless as Cron. But right here, he's a hitter that plays in Coors Field. And obviously, like I mentioned before, he has big-time power. And if this guy goes on a home run tear, he could hit 10 or 12 home runs in a month if he gets super hot, especially playing in Coors Field. So right here, he's still available in 52% of fantasy leagues. And he's an ad this week, so that's a few hitters I would look to add on waivers here in Week 13 of the fantasy baseball season.